The sun was hot over Lusaka that afternoon, and the streets were crowded with people rushing to finish their day. Street vendors shouted, children played with old tires, and cars honked as they tried to move through the busy road. In that noise and movement, Talia moved quietly. She was quick and light on her feet, her eyes always watching. Life had taught her to survive with speed and silence. She had no one waiting for her at home because she had no home. Her parents had died when she was very young, and she grew up on the streets, learning to trust no one and depend only on herself. Hunger was her closest friend, and the cold nights reminded her that dreams were for those who had a bed to sleep in. For Talia, each day was a battle for food, a place to rest, and a reason to keep living. That afternoon, she stood near a food stall, pretending to look at roasted maize while her eyes studied the people passing by. Some were poor like her, carrying small bags and tired faces. Others looked rich, with clean clothes and shiny shoes. Talia's eyes followed one man who stepped out of a black car. He was tall, calm, and dressed neatly in a white shirt and gray trousers. He spoke politely to the driver and started walking toward a nearby building. For a moment, Talia's heart beat faster. She noticed the edge of his wallet sticking out of his pocket. Her stomach growled. It had been 2 days since she had eaten properly. She hesitated for a second, then reminded herself that no one cared if she starved. Just this once, she whispered to herself. Moving through the crowd, she kept her steps soft and her eyes low. People brushed past her without noticing. When she got close enough, she brushed her shoulder against his side, and in that tiny moment, her fingers moved like wind. The wallet was in her hand, hidden under her old scarf. She turned away quickly, her heart racing. Kato, the man whose wallet she took, stopped for a moment, feeling something was different. He checked his pocket and realized it was gone. Most people in his place would have shouted or called for help. But he didn't. Instead, he looked around with calm eyes. He had seen her face for just a second, a young woman with eyes full of sadness and courage. Something about her didn't seem like an ordinary thief. Talia ran through the narrow street until she reached a quiet corner behind an old shop. She opened the wallet and froze. There was more money inside than she had ever seen in her life. Her hands trembled. For a long moment she just stared at it. A part of her wanted to spend it all, to eat a real meal, buy a clean dress, maybe even find a place to sleep. But another part of her felt strange. The man she stole from didn't seem cruel. He looked gentle, different from the others she had tricked before. Still, survival was stronger than guilt. She took a small part of the money, enough to buy food for a few days, and hid the rest near her sleeping place, an old broken shed by the train tracks. That night, she sat by a small fire, eating bread for the first time in days. She tried to feel happy, but she couldn't stop thinking about the man's face. Why hadn't he shouted or chased her? Why did he look more curious than angry? Meanwhile, Kato sat in his office looking out of the window. He was a man who had built his success from nothing. He understood struggle. Many years ago, he too had walked the streets with empty pockets and dreams that felt impossible. Seeing that girl reminded him of himself. The hunger, the fear, the fire to keep going no matter what. He asked a few street vendors if they had seen her. Some said yes, a quiet girl who helped small children and shared food when she could. That surprised him. A thief who gave away food? It didn't make sense. Over the next few days, Talia lived the same hard life, but her thoughts were different. Every time she passed that same street, she looked around nervously, afraid she might see him. Yet deep down, a part of her wanted to. Then one evening, while she was buying a piece of bread, she noticed a familiar car parked nearby. Her heart jumped. She turned to leave, but someone called out softly, "You don't have to run." She froze. It was Kato. He was standing just a few steps away, holding his jacket over one arm. His tone wasn't angry, it was calm, almost kind. "You took something that belonged to me," he said. Talia didn't move. She didn't lie or make excuses. She just stared at him, ready for the worst. But Kato did something she never expected. He smiled gently and said, "Keep it if you need it. I only wanted to know why." His words shocked her. No one had ever spoken to her like that, not with anger, not with pity, but with curiosity. "Because no one gives us anything," she finally whispered. "We have to take it or we die." Kato nodded slowly. He could see truth in her eyes. "Maybe," he said, "but sometimes people like you need a chance, not a chase." Talia didn't understand what he meant, but she felt her heart soften. She wanted to say thank you but didn't know how. So she just turned and walked away. That night she couldn't sleep. His words stayed with her like a quiet song. The next morning, Kato found himself thinking about her again. He had seen something rare in her, strength, pride, and pain all mixed together. He decided that if he ever met her again, he would offer her something she'd never had before: trust. Talia didn't know it yet, but her life was about to change. The man she had stolen from was not just a rich stranger. He was about to become the person who would show her that kindness could heal what hunger and fear had broken. And though she didn't know it, that one stolen wallet was going to open a door she never thought existed. A door to a life she had never dared to dream of. It was the beginning of something neither of them could have imagined. Days passed since the theft, but Cato could not forget the girl's face. He had met many people in his life, business partners, workers, and even beggars on the streets, yet none had left such an impression on him. There was something about her eyes. They were not the eyes of a cruel thief. They were the eyes of someone who had been hurt and forgotten by the world. Instead of reporting the crime, Cato decided to search for her himself. He asked quietly around the markets and the busy corners of Lusaka. Some vendors remembered her. "Ah, that girl," said an old woman selling fruits. "She takes, yes, but she also gives. I once saw her share her bread with a child." Cato was surprised. It didn't fit the story of a thief. He began to walk through the areas she was known to visit. He watched the narrow streets where people sold small items: shoes, clothes, and roasted maize. Days went by, and then one evening he saw her again. Talia stood by a food stall, her hair tied back, her clothes old but neat. She held a few coins in her hand and gave them to a small boy with hungry eyes. "Eat something," she said softly. The boy thanked her and ran away happily with his bread. Cato's heart softened. The girl who had stolen from him was helping others. He took a deep breath and stepped closer. "You took something from me," he said calmly. Talia froze. Her body tensed, her mind ready to run. Her eyes darted to the sides, searching for an escape. But Cato's voice wasn't angry, it was calm and steady, almost kind. "I don't want it back," he continued. "I just want to know why." She looked at him in shock. No one had ever asked her why before. People shouted, chased, or beat her. No one cared about her reasons. Her throat tightened as she whispered, "Because no one gives us anything. We have to take it." Cato looked at her for a long moment. Her words were not full of pride but pain. He saw that she was tired of fighting, tired of being unseen. "What if someone wanted to give you a chance instead?" he asked quietly. Talia frowned. She didn't understand. "A chance?" "Yes," Cato said. "To work. To live differently." She laughed softly, but there was no joy in her laugh. "People like you don't help people like me," she said. "Maybe," he replied, "but I was once like you." That made her stop laughing. She looked up at him, trying to read his face. His clothes were clean, his shoes polished, his voice calm, everything about him spoke of comfort. "You," she said. "You've never slept hungry." Cato smiled sadly. "I have," he said. "Many nights. I came to this city with nothing but a small bag. I worked at a shop, cleaned floors, and sometimes slept on the street. But one man believed in me. He gave me a job, and that changed everything." Talia didn't know what to say. She wanted to believe him, but her heart didn't trust kindness easily. Too many times she had been tricked, pushed away, or ignored. Cato noticed her hesitation and said, "I don't expect you to trust me. But come tomorrow to my cafe near the main road. As for me, if you don't like what you hear, you can walk away." Talia stood silent, unsure what to do. Then she turned and walked off quickly, disappearing into the crowd. Cato didn't chase her. He just watched her go, hoping she would come back. That night, Talia sat alone in her shed. The small fire beside her gave off weak light. She took out the wallet she had stolen, now empty except for a small photograph inside. She looked at it closely. It was of Cato standing with an older woman and a young boy, all smiling. They looked happy, something she hadn't felt in years. She wondered why a man like that would care about her. "A chance," she whispered. The word sounded strange but warm. The next day she couldn't stop thinking about it. She walked around the streets, but her mind kept returning to his face, his voice, and his strange kindness. Finally, as the sun began to set, she found herself standing near the cafe he had mentioned. It was small but clean, with people laughing and talking inside. She stood outside for a long time, afraid to go in. Then a worker came out and saw her. "Are you looking for someone?" he asked. Talia hesitated, then said quietly, "Cato?" The man smiled. "You must be the one he talked about. Wait here." Moments later, Cato came out, surprised but happy to see her. "You came?" he said softly. Talia nodded but didn't smile. "Only to hear what you have to say." Cato gestured for her to sit at a small table outside. He ordered food for her, rice and stew. Talia stared at it but didn't eat. She didn't trust free things. Eat, he said gently. It's just food, not a trick. Slowly she began to eat. Every bite felt strange, not because of the taste but because of what it meant. No one had ever cared whether she ate or not. Cato watched her quietly. I run a small company, he said. We help young people learn work skills, cooking, cleaning, sewing, selling. You can join if you want. Talia looked up. Why me? Because everyone deserves one honest chance, he replied. And because I think you're stronger than you know. Her eyes filled with tears but she quickly wiped them. You don't even know me, she said. Cato smiled gently. I know enough. You helped a hungry child when you had almost nothing. That tells me everything I need to know. Talia couldn't answer. No one had ever seen goodness in her before. For the first time, someone looked at her not as a thief but as a person. After a long silence, she said quietly, I'll think about it. That's all I ask, Cato said. When she left the cafe, the city lights were bright. She walked slowly, her mind full of questions she had never asked herself. What if he was telling the truth? What if life could be more than just surviving? That night, she lay awake under the stars, her heart heavy yet full of something new, hope. She didn't know it yet, but that meeting would be the start of a story that would change both their lives forever. When Cato offered Talia a job at his company, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It felt strange. The same man she had stolen from now wanted to help her. You must be joking, she said, shaking her head. People like you don't give chances to people like me. Cato looked at her calmly. You can believe whatever you like, he said, but the offer is real. Come tomorrow morning. If you change your mind, no one will blame you. That night, Talia lay awake in her small shed, staring at the cracked roof above her. The rain leaked through the corners and she wrapped her thin blanket tighter. Her stomach ached from hunger and her mind raced. What if it was a trap? What if he wanted to punish her? But then she remembered his eyes, steady, kind, and full of something she hadn't seen in years, honesty. The next morning, the smell of fresh bread from a nearby stall filled the air. Talia stood at the edge of the street, staring at the tall glass building with Cato's name on it. She had never been so close to a place like that before. Her hands trembled as she stepped inside. A receptionist looked up and asked, Can I help you? I came to see Cato, Talia said softly. The woman nodded and called upstairs. A few minutes later, Cato came down, smiling. You came, he said warmly. Talia shrugged. Only for one day, she said. If it's a trick, I'll leave. He chuckled. Fair enough. Come, let me show you around. Cato took her through the office. It was full of busy people, men and women typing, talking on phones and carrying files. Everyone seemed to know what they were doing. Talia felt small and nervous, afraid she would make a mistake. He introduced her to an older woman named Mama Decca, who managed the company's supplies. She'll show you what to do, Cato said kindly. You'll start by helping in the storeroom. Talia nodded, grateful but still unsure. As she followed Mama Decca, she could feel other workers looking at her, some with curiosity, others with quiet judgment. They could tell she wasn't used to this world. The first few days were hard. The storeroom was dusty and the work felt endless. She sorted boxes, cleaned shelves and carried heavy bags. Her hands hurt, her back ached, but she refused to complain. Each night, she left exhausted yet proud that she had earned her meal honestly. One afternoon as she was sweeping, Cato passed by and stopped. You don't have to do everything yourself, he said. Talia smiled faintly. It keeps me busy, she replied. I don't like sitting still. He admired that about her. There was a quiet fire in her, something strong and pure. Days turned into weeks. Slowly, people in the office began to like her. She greeted everyone politely, helped where she could, and never asked for more than she needed. Mama Decca often said, That girl works like the sun, steady and warm. Talia also began to see a new side of life. She learned how to manage supplies, fill reports, and even handle small orders. She listened carefully, learned quickly, and made few mistakes. Sometimes she caught herself smiling, something she hadn't done in a long time. For the first time, she had a reason to wake up in the morning that wasn't just survival. But deep inside, she still carried shame. She avoided Cato as much as possible, afraid he might one day change his mind or remind her of her past. One evening, as the office lights dimmed and most workers had gone home, Talia stayed behind to finish cleaning. The cleaner's broom had broken and she knelt on the floor trying to fix it with a piece of wire. Cato entered quietly, not wanting to disturb her. He watched her from the doorway, her face calm and focused, her hands careful and patient. You don't have to fix that, he said softly. She looked up, startled. It's fine, she replied. He needs it tomorrow morning. Cato stepped closer, his expression thoughtful. You've changed this place, you know, he said. Talia frowned. Me? I just sweep floors. He shook his head. No. You bring light here. People work better because they see your effort. You remind them what it means to work with heart. Her face grew warm and she looked down, embarrassed. You don't have to say nice things to make me stay, she whispered. I'm not, he said. I'm saying the truth. That moment hung between them, quiet, full of something deeper than words. After he left, Talia sat alone, thinking about what he said. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. All her life, people had seen her as trouble, a thief, a street girl, a problem. But Cato saw something else. That night, when she returned to her shed, she didn't feel small anymore. She looked at the stars through the holes in her roof and smiled softly. Maybe, for the first time, she was becoming someone different, someone worthy of trust. Weeks turned into months. Talia grew stronger and more confident. She made new friends in the office, and even Mama Decca began treating her like a daughter. One afternoon, a young worker tripped and spilled a box of files. Everyone laughed, but Talia hurried to help him pick them up. Don't mind them, she said kindly. We all make mistakes. Cato watched from his office window, smiling. He had seen many workers come and go, but none like her. She didn't just work for money, she worked with heart. That evening he found her outside, watching the sunset after a long day. You've done well, he said quietly. You should be proud. Talia looked at him, her eyes full of emotion. I never thought I'd belong anywhere, she said. But now I do. Cato smiled. That's because you earned it. He didn't say what he was really thinking, that somewhere between the stolen wallet and this moment, he had come to admire her deeply. She wasn't just the girl who had once stolen from him. She had become someone far greater, a woman of strength, humility, and quiet grace. As he walked back inside, Cato realized something he hadn't expected. He didn't just respect her, he cared for her. And for the first time in years, the man who had everything felt that he had finally found something truly rare, a soul he couldn't buy, only love. That evening, the city of Lusaka was quiet, the streets half lit by the orange glow of street lamps. The wind carried a soft hum of music from a nearby cafe, where laughter mixed with the sound of cars passing. Inside Cato's office, the lights were still on. He was working late as usual, reviewing reports while the rest of his staff had already gone home. Talia stood outside the building, her heart pounding. She had stayed longer than usual, pretending to organize supplies, but the truth was she wasn't ready to leave. Something had been sitting heavy in her heart for weeks, something she couldn't hide any longer. Every time Cato smiled at her or spoke kindly, she felt the guilt burn deeper. She wanted to tell him the truth, to finally free herself from the secret that had started everything. Taking a deep breath, she walked up the stairs and knocked on his office door. Come in, Cato said without looking up. When he finally did, his face softened. Talia, he said warmly, it's late. You should be home. She stepped inside slowly, her fingers nervously twisting the edge of her scarf. I needed to talk to you, she said quietly. He put his pen down, sensing the seriousness in her voice. Is something wrong? For a long moment she said nothing. She stared at the floor, searching for courage. Then, finally she looked up. I was the one who stole your wallet, she said softly. Her words hung in the air like a heavy shadow. Cato didn't move. He simply looked at her, calm and steady, his eyes thoughtful. Talia's heart raced. She expected shock, disappointment, maybe even anger. Her hands shook as she continued, I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just couldn't keep pretending. You've been so kind and I couldn't live with the lie anymore. She waited for him to speak, but he stayed silent. The room felt too quiet, too still. Talia swallowed hard. If you want me to leave the job, I understand, she said. I'll go tonight. Cato finally smiled, just a small, gentle smile. I knew, he said simply. Talia blinked. You knew? He nodded slowly. From the moment I saw you again, I knew you were the one. But I also saw something else. I saw someone who wasn't a thief at heart. I saw a woman trying to survive. Her lips trembled. Why didn't you say anything? Because people make mistakes, he said. And sometimes all they need is a chance to be seen for who they could become, not who they were. Talia's eyes filled with tears. No one had ever spoken to her that way. She had spent years believing her mistakes defined her, that she could never be more than what the world called her. I'm not that person anymore, she whispered. Cato stood and walked closer, his voice calm and warm. You never were, he said. You were someone trapped in pain, doing what you had to do to survive. But even then you had kindness in you. I saw it that day when you helped that child. Her tears fell freely now. You could have turned me in, she said. You could have ruined my life. I could have, he agreed. But I've learned that destroying someone doesn't heal anything. Lifting them does. Talia covered her face for a moment, trying to steady her breath. She wasn't used to forgiveness, it felt too heavy, too pure. You don't understand what that means to me, she said softly. I think I do, he replied. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was full of emotions neither of them could name. Gratitude, forgiveness, trust, and something else, something deeper, growing quietly between them. Cato sat down again and motioned for her to take a seat. She hesitated, then slowly sat across from him. Do you regret it? He asked gently. Talia thought for a moment. Yes, she said. But at the same time no. If I hadn't done it I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have met you. I wouldn't have learned who I really am. He nodded slowly. Sometimes mistakes bring us to the right places. They sat together for a while talking, not about the past but about life. Talia told him about the streets, the hunger, the people she used to share food with. Cato listened quietly, his heart heavy with both sadness and admiration. She had lived a life he could barely imagine, yet she had come out of it strong and kind. At one point she laughed softly through her tears. You know, she said, you make it hard to feel like a bad person. Cato smiled. That's because you aren't one. She looked at him for a long time, her eyes shining. In that quiet office, under the soft hum of the lights, something changed between them. It wasn't spoken aloud but both could feel it. A bond formed not from guilt or pity, but from understanding. When Talia finally stood to leave, Cato walked her to the door. You don't have to hide from your past anymore, he said gently. She nodded, wiping her eyes. And you don't have to keep forgiving me, she replied with a small smile. He chuckled. Maybe I just like seeing you smile. Her cheeks warmed and for the first time in a long while she let herself laugh. A real, soft laugh that filled the empty hallway with warmth. As she stepped outside, the cool night air brushed against her face. She looked up at the stars, brighter than she had ever noticed before. She felt lighter, freer. The secret that had weighed on her for so long was gone, replaced by peace. From the window above, Cato watched her go. There was something in her walk now, confidence, grace, a quiet strength. He knew then that what had begun as a strange twist of fate was slowly becoming something far greater. Neither of them spoke of love that night, but it was there, in the silence, in the forgiveness, in the way their hearts finally understood each other. And as the city lights flickered, both of them knew their story was only just beginning. Months passed and the city of Lusaka began to change in quiet but beautiful ways. Cato, once known only as a wealthy businessman, now spent more time in the streets than in his glass office. He no longer looked at the world through tinted car windows, he saw it through the faces of children running barefoot, through the eyes of the hungry, through the memories of a young woman who had once stolen his wallet but ended up giving him something far greater. Talia had changed too. Her days were no longer about survival but purpose. Each morning she woke early, put on her simple blue dress, and went to the new building on Cairo Road, the Cato Foundation for Street Children. It was her idea, but Cato had built it in her name. You know their world better than anyone, he had said when he offered her the position of director. They'll trust you before they trust me. The first few weeks were hard. The children didn't believe her at first. They ran away when she approached or mocked her kind offers. Talia understood, she had been like them once, suspicious of kindness, afraid of being tricked. But she didn't give up. Every day she went back, talking to them softly, sharing food, sitting with them on the ground. Slowly, one by one, they began to listen. Cato often visited, standing quietly in the background, watching her work. He saw how she knelt to tie a child's torn shoe or stayed late to help a boy learn to write his name. He saw how her laughter filled the air, how her eyes softened when the children smiled. She had a gift, not of wealth or power but of heart. One evening, when the last of the children had gone home, Cato found her still sitting in the yard, watching the sunset. You've done something beautiful here, he said softly. She smiled, brushing the dust from her hands. We've done it together. He shook his head. No, Talia. You made this real. I just gave the building. You gave it life. Talia looked at him for a moment, then smiled shyly. You believed in me when no one else did. That's what made it possible. He sat beside her, watching the sun dip behind the rooftops. I didn't believe in who you were, he said. I believed in who you could become. They sat in silence for a while, the air warm and golden. There was no need for more words. The peace between them spoke louder than anything else. As weeks turned into months, the foundation grew. More children came, more lives changed. Some of them began going to school for the first time. Others found new homes. The people of Lusaka started talking about the mysterious woman who had once lived on the streets and now led one of the most successful charities in the city. One day, a reporter came to interview Kato about the foundation. He asked curiously, "Why her? Why make a woman with such a past the face of your project?" Kato smiled, his eyes gentle. "Because she once stole my wallet," he said. "And then she stole my heart." The words spread quickly through the city, appearing in newspapers and whispers. Some laughed, some admired, but everyone knew there was truth in them. Talia was embarrassed when she read it. "You shouldn't have said that," she told him, blushing. He chuckled softly. "Why not? It's the truth." She looked at him, half smiling, half serious. "You make it sound like a fairy tale." He shook his head. "No. Fairy tales end when people find each other. Real stories begin after that." And their story did continue, quietly, beautifully, and with purpose. They never rushed their feelings. There were no big declarations or fancy dinners. Love grew between them in the small things, in shared laughter over tea, in the way he waited for her after work, in the letters she left on his desk thanking him for believing in her. It was a love built not on money or beauty but trust and time. One rainy afternoon, Talia was teaching a group of children how to read when Kato came in, carrying umbrellas. The children ran to him, shouting his name. He laughed and handed them sweets, his eyes finding Talia across the room. For a moment, the world around them seemed to fade. He saw in her everything he had been missing, not perfection but peace. That evening, as they walked together through the wet streets, Talia said softly, "Do you ever think about how strange it all is? How we met because of a mistake?" Kato smiled. "I think it wasn't a mistake. Maybe fate just used a stolen wallet to bring two lost people together." She laughed gently. "You make everything sound easy." "It wasn't easy," he said. "It was worth it." They stopped under a street light, rain glistening on the pavement. Talia looked up at him, her heart full. For the first time she didn't feel like the girl who stole to survive. She felt like someone who had found her place, someone who mattered. Kato reached out and gently took her hand. "You gave me more than my wallet back," he said. "You gave me meaning." Talia smiled, her eyes shining. "And you gave me a new life." From that night they walked together, not as a billionaire and a thief, but as two people who had learned that love and forgiveness could change everything. The foundation continued to grow, helping hundreds of children find homes and hope. Every wall of the building carried laughter, every classroom told a story. Talia became known across Lusaka not as the girl from the streets, but as the woman who gave others a second chance. Sometimes, when the evenings were quiet, she would stand by the window of her office and watch the children play outside. Kato would come and stand beside her, both smiling in silence. Neither needed to say much, their hearts already spoke for them. One of the boys who had joined the foundation, a cheerful child named Musa, once asked her, "Mama Talia, is it true you used to steal?" Talia smiled, kneeling down to his height. "Yes," she said. "But then someone taught me how to give instead." Musa tilted his head. "And that someone is Mr. Kato?" She laughed softly. "Yes. He gave me a chance and I gave it to others." When the boy ran off, Kato came behind her and said, "You've become a teacher, Talia." She turned and smiled. "Maybe. But I'm still learning too." He grinned. "We both are." Years later, the foundation became one of the largest in Zambia. People from around the world came to visit and support it. Yet Kato and Talia never changed. They remained humble, walking hand in hand through the same streets where they first met. And whenever someone asked Kato about their story, he always smiled and said the same thing, his voice full of quiet pride: "She stole my wallet, and then she stole my heart."